we figured something out, something very important. The number one issue for this city to grow and flourish is schools. Economy rises, it carries all boats. A good mayor, even an average mayor, can get some cranes hanging downtown. But if we are going to get young families to live in Cleveland, if we're going to bring other families to Cleveland, we must fix our school system. That is the only way that we can grow this city. There are 3 other cities that are doing fine in this economy. Philadelphia has leveled off its population and is growing. Pittsburgh, oh, I said it, yes, Pittsburgh, leveled off its population and has a vibrant downtown. Chicago reinvented itself and is on its way. We can do it here, but the number one problem that this mayor, the future mayor of the city of Cleveland, if he's going to stop the evacuation of Cleveland almost, you must fix the school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, you have 1 minute.
Very good. You know, young people are very essential to our community. My question to the panelists, the mayoral candidates is this: where were you? What have you done in the past 4 years? I guess I can say that with the exception of Mayor Frank Jackson. When we had the Jonathan Dothert case, that was a mass media case where a young man who attended East Tech High School, he was being beaten every day. Where were you? I was there on site. When we had Ace Coons, the young man who went to Success Tech and shot up the schools, where were you? I was right there on site. I was there. Why? Not because the teachers called me in or the administrators, but the young people called me in. The Brown administration has the ability to engage young people. We need young people in order to make the city move. We're ready to move the city forward. Once again, Cleveland is finally first. Imagine that. Can you imagine? I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Brown. And Ms. Gore, you have 45 seconds.
I think the biggest thing that we have an obligation to do, and I am in total agreement, is the schools, educating our young people. But the first order of business, the first day of the next mayoral administration, we must clean the top of the school system. We need new leadership. We must rid ourselves of ineffective leadership that is continuously taking our children and sending them in the wrong direction. I don't know how this will read in tomorrow's Plain Dealer, but I can suggest to you that I pray that you endorse the children over anything else and not a name. The name that should be endorsed is the Cleveland Metropolitan School District and the children that are suffering while they're in there attending it. Thank you.
Okay, and Mayor Jackson, you have 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
You know, we often say that anybody can talk a good game, but it's in the doing. And I believe that I have done. And I believe and I know that Cleveland is better off as a result of what I have done. And we do have a future. We do have a future. And that all of these things that have been said as critical, transformative points, we've laid the foundation for. Whether it's in our economy and connecting us with a global economy, whether it's moving the ports eastward so that we can have a vision that when times get better, that we can be a competitor in a global maritime market, whether it's positioning our educational system with special option schools that will be able to move our children into highly technical and highly performing areas and giving them scholarships free of charge to them to higher education, whether it's creating better public safety, quality of life, standard of living in the city of Cleveland, and better service delivery to the people of the city of Cleveland. I believe Mr. Kylo is right. It is about the people. It is about the people. It's about this city and the people of this city, and that's who I serve. And I've spent a lifetime doing it. A lifetime doing it. And I will continue to do it. And I will continue to do my job, not because of the benefit it brings to Frank Jackson, because if that were the case, I would probably retire. But I would do this and will do this because of you. You have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, I still live here. And when someone doesn't have a job, my grandchildren don't have a job. My grandchildren go to the schools. When there's no education, it happens to my grandchildren. When some child gets harmed on a playground, it's the same playground and rec center that my child goes to. So there's no separation of me and Cleveland in the future.
Thanks, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Kylo, I'll ask you to choose your words carefully. You have 10 seconds.
Better drop back and throw a touchdown quick. Well, I think ultimately I also had a poster in my dorm at Ohio University, which was a quote from John F. Kennedy, which said, "It's time for a new generation of leadership, for there's a new world to be won." I'm submitting to the people of Cleveland, it's time for a new generation of leadership, for it's time to win the city of Cleveland. So thank you.
Thank you. We will now have the traditional City Club question and answer period. Questions will be addressed to a specific candidate, or I should say questions that are addressed to a specific candidate will be answered by that candidate. They'll have 1 minute, and then I may call on one or two other candidates for a comment, and that comment will be up to 30 seconds. Questions that are addressed to all the candidates will be answered with a 1-minute time limit for each. As the moderator, I reserve the right to ask any candidate a follow-up question or ask a clarification, and those responses will be limited to 30 seconds. And to the audience, I thank you in advance for cooperating by making your questions and stating them as briefly and clearly as possible. Let's see if we can get our first question for the candidates.
Hi, my name is Sheila Wright, and I have a question for the whole panel. Actually, it's a two-part question. The first question is, I'm sure that each candidate is familiar with the Duroff decision that the Ohio Supreme Court ruled where it's unconstitutional to fund schools in the way that they do. Since we live in Cleveland and we have these housing crises that are going on, I would think that this matter would come up, even more so. And also, what do you plan to do specifically to stop young people who are bright and talented from leaving Cleveland? What plans do you have to ameliorate that?
Ms. Brown, will you begin?
Yes, I will. I'm familiar with the law that says it's unconstitutional to really use property taxes for school funding. So basically, because right now, it's very unfortunate we are operating under the shrink-in theory model. So my concept is very simple. As opposed to always looking at funding, sometimes we have to use exactly what we have, the necessary resources, in order to move our city forward. But at the same time, asking business leaders and corporations to actually help us do this by providing the necessary material. Sometimes it's not about money, but sometimes it's about giving resources that are already there. And number two, you talked about young people leaving Cleveland. Well, what I want to do is this. I want to actually, build a world-class marketing and promotions team and have young college students buy into that process. So therefore, when there are opportunities available, that corporations and businesses will match us to actually provide them opportunities to where they can live, grow, and raise a family. This is what we plan on doing.
Thanks, Ms. Brown. Would any of the other candidates like to respond to that question? Yeah, Mr. Kylo.
That's to everybody. Go ahead, please, Laverne.
I think one of the things that you have to look at when you're talking about the best and the brightest, you see, I believe that the public school system was initiated historically so that all children had the opportunity to learn. I don't know if we can say that everybody is the best and the brightest, but they are children. And the public school system has an obligation to instill democracy into those children through literacy. So we have to expand our public school system. And when I'm talking about expanding, involve them in the technological movement that we have apparent in our country right now. You see, one of the things we have to look at is we have to update what is being taught in our school systems. We have to bring technology into those school systems, not just for the best and brightest. Because you see, for somebody like me who is not probably the best and brightest, I am going to need to know how to operate computers. I'm going to need to know how to interact with that technology of the future. If we don't teach our children technology and bring them up to standards, then we will consider them lost.